Thank you so much for having me here. Tejas stole away a little bit of my thunder because I was going to talk to you about my connection with IIMahmedabad. I've spent 4 summer breaks on a trot in this very campus, in dorm number 21, room number 41, I still remember it, as the wife of an FPM student here. So it's a privilege and a journey back down the memory lane for me to come here. That's my special connection with IIMahmedabad. I was sitting in exactly those chairs 20 years ago. And when I got this invite to speak at this event, it was almost like, what can I tell myself 20 years back that I'm wiser now, having learned, gone through the corporate sort of hierarchy for last 20 years. And one of the thoughts that came to my head was placements. All of us undergo the stress and the journey of placements here at IIM, whether it's Ahmedabad or Bangalore. So that's what I thought I will start. I will do a small activity with all of you to get all of us warmed up. I will ask you 3 questions. Think about the answers and count the number of yeses that you have. My first question, after you figured out that a friend actually got through a day 0 or cluster 1 placement, did you start looking at them much more favorably than you ever did before? My second question, have you in your pecking order thought about consulting and investment banking are like higher in the pecking order than FMCG? And my last question, have you looked at a person saying, I am the product guy from a tech company or a startup and said, wow? And then when somebody said they've joined an HR role, you said, yeah, me. Now, I won't ask you to reveal your answers, but I know all of us have been there. This pecking order, or what I personally called the corporate caste system of the intellectual, is very real. It exists, right? And it's not our fault. What happens is, due to the context we operate in, this gets etched into our psyches. And having this is not a problem. Where it becomes a problem is when it starts to impact your own decision making about your own career choices. That's when it becomes a problem. So I'll share with you my story in a bit. But before that, since we are talking placements and career choices, I wanted to share with you a fun anecdote from 20 years back when I was sitting in your seats. So this is IIM Bangalore. Placecom, I'm sure you have Placecom right now too, were demigods on campus. They would assign 2 slots every week for people to attend pre-placement talks, right? And since we were MBAs and there was supply and there was demand, we converted it into a trade. Because if I didn't want to attend a particular slot, I would put it out there and somebody else would like swap it with me or trade it with me or whatever. The fun fact is what got premium in these trades was actually the companies which serve pizzas. In our defense, 20 years back, the purchasing power of students was much lower than it is today. And also, pizzas were not as ubiquitous and omnipresent back then. But I hope that has changed about the campus. But now shifting gears and talking about my own story. So here is my story for you. I graduated out of ITBHU. I was a computer science engineer. I got a role to become a management trainee in a large FMCG company. And this was exhilarating for 2 reasons. One reason was that we were still engineers. There were only a handful of engineers and CAs who directly got entrance into a management trainee program because it was mostly for students like you, which was like people who had done MBAs. So it felt like we had leapfrogged a degree, so we were exhilarated. The other reason we were exhilarated was only 2 out of 500 people who were graduating out of this engineering college actually got this opportunity back then. So like this starry-eyed 21-year-old, I joined management trainee program in this FMCG company. It was nothing short of a fantastic finishing school. Back then there was no internet. So I got a chance to see the first 80 remote factories come online using VSATs, very small aperture terminal. So it was an inflection point in technology. I got a chance to work on ERPs. And we actually managed to improve the working capital, reduce the working capital requirement, improve the order to cash ratio, change the treasury economics, make it look better using technology. However, in spite of all this, When I viewed the organization from inside as a 21-year-old, I walked away thinking sales and marketing is the hero function. Support function is not the hero function because I'm not close to impact, I don't make the decisions. Anyone from support never makes a CEO, and hence I rested my case in my head. I said I have to go out and do an MBA, and I secretly swore I will never work in a support function again. I will find my way out of this. So you see how it gets etched in our psyche, even though nobody is verbally telling us anything. So I got very lucky. I got into IIM Bangalore. I wasn't lucky enough to get into Ahmedabad. I only had a call from Bangalore, so I went and joined Bangalore. As things played out, very grateful, got into a consulting firm. I was in their core role. I was the function that was making money because I was doing strategy consulting. Again, super grateful, fantastic 8 years, did post-merger integrations, led large-scale transformations, started a sales force ground up, launched new products for a bank. So you name it, and mostly I got a chance to do it for 8 years. 8 years later, I had my son. And that's when it started to become impossible to sustain the work life. And I was almost at a point where I was starting to sort of think what next. But when I dug deep down, it was not just my son or the fact that that work-life balance did not make sense to me anymore. Deep down, I was missing the connection, the belonging. I didn't know why I was working so hard. What was I working so hard for? And that was missing. So I made a pivot again, this time to another fancy job, in a tech firm, running their operations strategy. And when I was running the operations strategy and looking at the org from inside, it dawned upon me that given my skill set, technology, strategy, operations, and the kind of work I've enjoyed, I actually want to run the revenue enablement function and not do the glamorous sales and marketing. But the biggest battle I had to fight was in my own mind with myself. Because remember, back then I had decided I won't do support roles and I want to be like the glamorous front and center role. And here again I was battling with myself, trying to say that that's exactly what I want to do. This was even more hilarious because now I was in an organization where this IT function that I was running away from because it was a support function was actually the hero function. Because a product or a technology manager in the IT firm is the one who makes all the money. The irony was not lost on me. Life had come a full circle, except that IT now, which was a support function earlier, was now wearing the more glamorous hat. This was my penny drop moment, or to today's theme, pebble drop moment. Because this pebble then ultimately had the ripples throughout the rest of my life, which brought me to, where I am. I fought that battle in my head. Thankfully, I landed the role, which was still a support role, but like a lot of fun. I had the fortune of running like many transformations within that org. We did not only do revenue enablement, we made the whole organization more customer centric. We gleaned insights and went back to product and made the products more effective. And to top it all, I have been a part of multiple transformations where we have completely obviated what we were doing earlier and figured out something completely new to do, which was like very exhilarating and very exciting. So in hindsight, I'm very happy that I fought my own unconscious bias and actually did a few things. As I have gone through this journey, I think what I've realized is small, sounding seemingly insignificant events actually add up and help transform not just individuals, but actually the entire organization sometime. And this has helped me come up with like a playbook that I deploy every time almost that I go through functions. I thought it would be a good idea to share with all of you. The first one is mindsets. I was asking the wrong question for the first 15 years of my career, and that question was, is this function important enough? My learning is every function is important, which is why it exists. Otherwise, it would stop existing. The right question to ask for any function is this function adding the required value to its potential to unlock customer and shareholder value? And every time I've picked up the team, this is the lens through which I have sort of made sure that I'm running transformation exercises. So this is the first one. The second one is meaning. A lot of times 21, 22-year-olds like yourself run away from a job just because they don't see how it connects to the bigger picture. Making sure that the last individual contributor on your team aligns with the fact, why does this team exist? What is its value to the customer and shareholder is a bigger thing than the what do they do and how do they do it, because the what and how will keep changing every 2 years or like these days even every 1 year. But what does not change is why you exist, and that's the anchor. And until the last person on your team understands that anchor, you will not be successful in running a big team, retaining good talent and holding them together. The third one is another very interesting one which is very precious to me. Self-preservation is baked into all our psyches. We are all very wired to preserving ourselves because that's how mankind has survived and humanity has survived. You need to undo this to be able to run successful organizations. What you need to do is to not be scared of completely obviating yourself and making yourself redundant. There are so many occasions on which systematically every year or even every quarter we look at what are the things we are doing today which can actually be done by somebody else or being like completely made self-serve, and we stop doing those without the fear of survival. And I think this to me is one of the biggest secrets of success as you run any organization, including any support function. The fourth one, while you obviate what is not required or make it self-serve, it's equally important to see where is the next frontier of value creation. To give you an example, automation and AI are the big levers today. And these levers are changing almost everything, every process, every product, you name it, and everyone's trying out stuff to do basis these. In my case, there were products where AI came in, and historically what we used to do for these products was no longer relevant. But AI doesn't work on its own. AI doesn't explain why it is useful by itself. We had to rethink the entire operation for the products which had AI enabled in them, and this is your opportunity. So you are at one end obviating where you're not required, but at the same time you're figuring out what is changing, what is evolving, and how do you actually service, support, sell those newer things which are coming up. And I think my last learning is organizations have gotten more and more siloed and matrixed. Gone are the days when one organization had one head and he could make all the decisions that impacted that organization. More and more we have silos and matrices, and in this scenario, for any team to have its full impact, it needs to be very well connected, and the leadership needs to be talking to each other so that every function can deliver its own full value. So that was probably, think of your team, your role, your function as a part of a larger whole, and then play your cards to influence the larger whole, because otherwise if you continue to operate in your silo, you will have much lesser impact than you could have. So that is my playbook to driving using small and insignificant things, but using them and making sure they count in the longer term and create the ripple that we should be having. So coming back to where I started from, if I was sitting in this seat 20 years back and if I had a chance to advise myself again, I would say, as ironical as it sounds, be conscious of your unconscious biases. Most likely you are standing in your own way and you have to get out of your own way. Second, embrace the unsung heroes. There are a lot of teams which are support, which don't get spotlight on them, but that's where your larger unlocks on the shareholder value might be sitting. So make them count, look at them carefully. And small ripples go a long way. It's not about being a hero of your own story. It's about how many other stories can you empower and how many other people can you help become the heroes of their own story. So I would recommend that we do all three. Thank you so much. You're a wonderful audience. Lot of encouragement and eye contact that you gave me from there. Super grateful.